So, dear colleague, time is time. Mrs. the Ambassador, Excellency, you are very welcome in Brussels to give us your point of view. Chers collègues, comme vous le savez, notre comité a pour tradition d'inviter l'ambassadeur de l'État membre assurant la présidence du Conseil de l'Union européenne à présenter le programme et les priorités de la présidence. Nous avons réalisé cet exercice lors de la présidence polonaise au mois de février dernier. Madame Susan Schein, ambassadeur du Danemark en Belgique, nous rejoint aujourd'hui pour un échange de vues sur les priorités de la présidence danoise du Conseil de l'Union européenne au deuxième semestre 2025. Je tiens d'ores et déjà à féliciter le Danemark pour sa 8e présidence du Conseil de l'Union européenne lors de la réunion des présidents de la COSAC à Copenhague la semaine passée, à laquelle Madame Van Riet a participé. Madame Marie Bjerre, ministre des Affaires européennes, a présenté les priorités de cette présidence danoise. Dans un monde en mutation, la devise choisie par la présidence danoise, une Europe forte dans un monde en changement, reflète les priorités qu'elle portera tout au long de ce semestre. Cette présidence s'articule autour de 2 piliers, une Europe sûre, autonomie stratégique, défense et résilience démocratique, une Europe verte et compétitive, concilier transition et croissance durable. Madame l'ambassadeur s'exprimera en anglais, une interprétation est bien sûr prévue comme à l'habitude à cet effet. Mrs. the Ambassador, Excellencies, I give you the floor.
Let's see if it works. Our Honourable Chair.
Perfect.
Members of the Advisory Committee for European Affairs, dear guests. It's both a pleasure and a great honour to be here today to present the Danish government's plans and priorities for the Danish presidency of the Council of the European Union, and as the chairman said, the 8th Danish presidency. But before I turn to the agenda of the Danish EU presidency, let me just take this opportunity also to say a few words with my hat as bilateral ambassador here to Belgium. Belgium and Denmark are 2 like-minded countries. We work closely together in a number of areas, and we share many of the same views in the current difficult geopolitical situation. Denmark often looks to Belgium. At the embassy, we are frequently asked by various Danish authorities to research and report on Belgian legislation in order for the Danish policymakers to draw inspirations from Belgium. Likewise, there is a close cooperation between our countries at the highest political level, where our priorities are increasingly aligning. And not least, we have strong economic ties as we see a number of Danish companies establishing themselves here in Belgium. It is therefore indeed a great pleasure to stand before you here, or sit here in front of you today to present the priorities of the Danish presidency of the European Council. And also, I have to say, needless to say, as bilateral ambassador, and therefore not part of the EU machinery on a daily basis, I will not be able to answer all your questions in details, but I will, of course, with help from my good colleagues from the embassy, also do my very best, and I look forward to an interesting debate. I should add that we are looking forward also to learning your views on the various issues, which of course we will report back to Copenhagen also. I will also, like the chairman said, apologize for not speaking in French. I'm learning. And I'm sure when we go into the 9th Danish presidency, I will be able to do this here in fluent French and maybe also some Dutch. Time will show. So, yes. Last week, I congratulated the Polish presidency on a job well done, as the presidency of the European Council was handed over from Poland to Denmark here in Belgium. The message from the Polish presidency was Security Europe. It was a clear wake-up call for the EU in a time of rising geopolitical instability and threats to European values. The Danish presidency of the European Council will build on the work done by the Polish presidency, and we closely align our priorities also with those of the European Commission. Denmark is taking over the presidency of the Council at a crucial time for the future of Europe. And needless to say, that is a huge task and a great responsibility. The slogan of the Danish presidency is "A stronger Europe in a changing world." We find ourselves in a continuously challenging time for Europe. Our security is under pressure, our competitiveness is being tested, and shifting winds from the United States are putting transatlantic relations under strain and adding to the uncertainty. And we have a war on European soil. I think it's clear to say that just a few years ago, no one could have imagined the world looking the way it does today. But it is especially in times like these that we must remind ourselves of what European Union has achieved and what it stands for. The EU has brought us peace, prosperity, and freedom. It represents cooperation and joint solutions, and it remains our strongest tool for solving problems which we cannot tackle alone. We have seen before how Europe can unite and act wisely and decisively in the face of major challenges. And it is particularly in times of crisis that European cooperation demonstrates its strength and rises to the occasion. But one thing for certain is that the Danish presidency will not be business as usual. We expect unforeseen developments to frame and define our presidency, that being the war in Ukraine, in the Middle East, transatlantic relations, increased competition and trade barriers, energy prices, climate change, and irregular migration, or other developments that we have not yet foreseen. But for what we know now, the Danish presidency has two main priorities for the next 6 months: a secure Europe and a competitive and green Europe. The first of Denmark's priorities for the presidency will be to ensure that Europe is secure and resilient, and able to respond to urgent shared challenges, and at the same time capable of standing in its own right as a geopolitical actor. The EU must take responsibility for its own and Euro-Atlantic security, in close cooperation, of course, with NATO. Strengthening Europe's defense industry and production is an essential part of that. Our ambition is that Europe should be capable of defending itself by 2030. The EU's continued support for Ukraine's fight for peace and freedom is also a key priority for the Danish presidency, including political, economic, civilian, and military support. We must be ready to strengthen sanctions on Russia and minimize the risk of circumvention. The support for Ukraine was also clear at the launch of the Danish EU presidency in Aarhus last week, where we saw President Zelensky standing beside the Danish Prime Minister Frederiksen, Commission President van der Leyen, and Council President Costa. And to quote the Danish Prime Minister, "Ukraine belongs in the European Union. It is in both Denmark's and Europe's interest. Therefore, the Danish EU presidency will do everything we can to help Ukraine on its way towards EU membership." At the same time, security is related to migration. Preventing and tackling irregular migration is vital to Europe's security. We must ensure stability at the EU's external borders, and the Danish presidency will work for new and innovative solutions to manage irregular migration, including in connection with new regulation on returns and amendments to the safe third country concept. At the same time, It is also a priority to strengthen the strategic and comprehensive partnership with the countries along the migratory routes. We will also focus on strengthening democratic resilience, including through an EU democratic shield. The EU must provide strong conditions for free and independent media, and it must hold tech giants accountable, both in combating disinformation and in protecting children and young people online. We will prioritize defending Europe's core values, including the rule of law. As democratic norms face pressure and authoritarian forces challenge the global order, we must protect the values that make the EU attractive to citizens and businesses. The EU must also promote economic security and strengthen insights into concrete risk associated with critical infrastructure, dependencies, supply chains, technology security and leakage, and work to reduce security risks. Finally, current geopolitical developments underline the need to enlarge the EU. An ambitious, merit-based enlargement will make the EU geopolitically stronger. This includes progress on Ukraine's path to membership, but also support for Moldova and the Western Balkans. Honourable Chair, honourable members of the Advisory Committee for European Affairs, this brings me to the second of the priorities for the Danish presidency, a comprehensive and green Europe. Intensified global competition calls for targeted joint and national action to strengthen the EU's competitiveness, and the green transition is a key part of the solution. Last year, former ECB President Mario Draghi presented a report highlighting the need to boost the EU's productivity and competitiveness. He pointed to over-regulation, a shrinking workforce, an innovation gap, and high energy costs as major obstacles. We must take concrete action and turn good ideas into real results, both new and familiar ones. One key aspect is the need to reduce burdens on businesses, citizens, and public authorities. The Danish presidency will aim for less red tape for European companies and individuals. We will seek to simplify existing regulation by promoting the Commission's program and initiatives. And we will be part of making sure that future legislation is better and less burdensome. For that, we need more awareness of the consequences of proposed legislation. It is necessary to make better assessments of the impact of legislation on the EU's competitiveness and on small and medium enterprises. Competitiveness is also about better implementation. Therefore, the intention to implement the legislation should be integrated into the design phase of when you make new legislation. In addition, we need to promote the positive preconditions for competitiveness. We will work to ensure that the jobs of the future are created in Europe and stay in Europe as well. Therefore, we must have free and fair movement within the EU, decent working conditions, and a healthy and safe working environment. Likewise, the Danish presidency will prioritize to expand the EU's network of trade agreements and economic partnerships. Importantly, during the Danish presidency, we will also help shape a reform-oriented and fiscally responsible direction for the EU's next multi-annual financial framework, MFF, from 28. While a deal won't be reached in 25, we can leave a clear mark and lay the groundwork for future presidencies. The Danish presidency will also seek to accelerate the green transition, especially through renewable energy and better infrastructure. We must enhance energy supply security and ensure that the EU becomes fully independent of Russian energy. On climate, we will work to ensure that the EU maintains its global leadership, even as attention shifts elsewhere. Climate action and the green transition are key to strengthening Europe's competitiveness. The EU has already shown that growth and green transition can go hand in hand. Green jobs in the EU have increased from 3 million full-time jobs in the year 2000 to 6.7 in 2022. And we must build on these strengths and success stories. New technologies, including biotechnology and bio-based solutions, can provide new revenue opportunities while supporting the green transition. Lastly, we will also work to achieve agreement on a 2040 climate target. This is important to provide European businesses with certainty and to demonstrate European leadership in the global climate negotiations at COP30. As I said in the beginning, we are living in a world undergoing deep and rapid change, and the Danish presidency comes at a historically decisive moment. We have set an ambitious agenda for our presidency. The time demands it, and the Danish government is ready to deliver. And we will do our utmost to be an honest broker. I know that right now the Danish Prime Minister, she's actually presenting the Danish priorities to the to the European Parliament in Strasbourg. So I'm sure she will also specify very clearly what the priorities would be. Our high level of ambition is also clear in the fact that we are planning to host 15 informal ministerial meetings across Denmark. And in addition, we will host in Denmark 2 summits, an informal meeting of EU heads of states and government on 1st of October, and a meeting of the European political community on the 2nd of October. And as you can see here on the map of small Denmark, we will try to host the different meetings in all parts of Denmark. In total, we look at activities in Brussels, Denmark and Luxembourg, and we expect to have up to 2,000 working parties, 100 trilogue meetings, and up to 70 meetings in Comeurop and much more. So it is evidently going to be a busy time for Denmark as President of the European Council. But we will work with dedication for a strong and resolute EU that takes responsibility for its own security and for strengthening its competitiveness. When we are united, we stand stronger also in Europe. Thank you for your attention and for your interest in the priorities of the Danish presidency of the European Council. I am looking forward to hearing your comments and, of course, your questions. And I understand that we are hearing your comments, and then afterwards I will try to reply, probably in groups, to your comments and questions. And I have to say also, as I said in the beginning, I am not in the EU bubble. I have help here from my colleagues, but if there are questions that are too technical, too specific, we will try to come back to you, maybe with feedback in writing, and I hope you can accept that. So thank you very much, Honourable Chair.
Thank you, Mrs. the Ambassador, for your initial presentations. As usual, I will give you the floor to the members of this committee. En om te beginnen, ik zal het woord geven aan mevrouw Van Riet van de groep N-VA.
Dank u wel. Thank you, Mrs. Ambassador, for your explanation. The Danish presidency has rightly prioritized security and the protection of European interests. They focus on strengthening resilience, robustness, and deterrence against complex and hybrid threats, which are essential for our collective safety. We also support the Danish plan to steer the enlargement process in line with the Copenhagen criteria and a merit-based approach. This ensures that everyone benefits from the enlargement. You also mentioned competitiveness. For our fraction, this remains a key priority. We need to determine how to facilitate our strategic independence and finances. And we have to carefully examine how the Green Deal's objectives that are really important, but they have to continue to support and enhance economic growth. Looking ahead to the multi-annual financial framework, it's clear that we need to fundamentally reform the European budget so as to focus on creating efficient instruments and targeted investments that add real value, particularly in the field of security and energy supply. The MFF shouldn't just be about distributing funds. The new MFF should revitalize our European economy. It should be a strategic tool that promotes technological progress and that should focus on those new challenges regarding competitiveness, border control, and security. Thank you.
Dank u wel, mevrouw Van Riet. Pour les engagés, je vais donner la parole à monsieur Ludgen.
Merci, monsieur le Président. Merci, madame l'ambassadrice, pour l'ensemble de votre exposé. Vous arrivez dans un moment qui est critique, mais vous n'êtes pas la première et le premier pays qui arrive dans ce moment particulier au niveau de la sécurité pour le continent européen. Nous saluons bien sûr votre ambition de renforcer la capacité de l'Union à se défendre, de garantir un soutien durable à l'Ukraine également, et de mieux maîtriser encore les flux migratoires. On peut partager évidemment et largement ces objectifs. Quelques questions peut-être plus précises. Concernant l'interopérabilité et la coordination européenne, vous savez faire de l'Union européenne une puissance capable de se défendre elle-même à l'horizon 2030, on ne peut qu'y souscrire, mais quel mécanisme concret comptez-vous promouvoir pour renforcer cette interopérabilité des forces européennes et éviter aussi les doublons capacitaires et assurer la complémentarité avec l'OTAN, sachant que sur ce point en particulier, êtes-vous favorable à proposer un fonds européen de réarmement pour soutenir les différents États membres qui sont dans des difficultés budgétaires, la Belgique l'est comme d'autres, de pouvoir effectivement rencontrer leurs obligations en matière d'investissement militaire. Le Danemark est-il favorable par ailleurs à l'établissement d'un commandement militaire européen permanent, outil qui pourrait renforcer la crédibilité de l'Union européenne sur la scène internationale? Concernant toujours l'armement et le fonds danois d'accélération du réarmement, décidé en février de cette année, ce fonds pour le réarmement que vous avez lancé au Danemark en février dernier, peut-il servir de modèle européen? Envisagez-vous également de proposer ce mécanisme ou un mécanisme similaire pour l'Union européenne, singulièrement pour soutenir notre industrie de défense? Enfin, concernant les engagements à l'égard de l'Ukraine, quels engagements concrets la présidence danoise entend-elle, même si vous y avez déjà en partie répondu, prendre pour garantir la continuité du soutien militaire, même le renforcement aussi économique, humanitaire, notamment en lien avec la révision du cadre budgétaire européen et compte tenu de la suspension, pas suspension de l'aide américaine, même si ça varie d'heure en heure, au travers du soutien réaffirmé et puis retiré de la part du président Trump. Je vous remercie infiniment.
Merci, monsieur Ludgen. Voor groep Vooruit, ik geef het woord aan meneer Waits. U hebt het woord.
Dank u, voorzitter. Dear Madam Ambassador, thank you for being here with us. I think I can go further in Dutch and it will be translated in English. Okay, thank you. Mevrouw de ambassadeur, ja, hartelijk dank voor uw aanwezigheid. Als sociaal-democraten van Vooruit zijn wij heel erg blij dat Denemarken investeren in onze Europese veiligheid en onze Europese defensie als een van de prioriteiten heeft gemaakt. Ik denk dat Denemarken een heel mooi voorbeeld is van een land in onze Europese Unie die bewijst dat je zowel kan investeren in defensie en in een harde veiligheidsmaterie, maar ook nog een zeer sterke sociale zekerheid overeind kan houden. Dat die twee hand in hand kunnen gaan. Ik denk dat Denemarken daar echt een voorbeeld van is in onze Europese Unie. Vandaar dat wij dan ook heel blij zijn dat jullie dit ook als prioriteit zien. En denk ik dat wij ook als België kunnen leren van hoe jullie dat aanpakken. Ik vroeg mij gewoon af, mevrouw de ambassadeur, of er al geweten is welke Defence Investment Pledge Denemarken zal hanteren voor de komende jaren. Dus we hebben zo net de NAVO-top gehad in Den Haag, waar er is afgesproken om te werken naar een groeipad van 3,5 plus 1,5%. In welk tijdspad ziet Denemarken dat te realiseren en hoe rijmen jullie dat, deze sterke verhoging van de defensieuitgaven, hoe rijmen jullie dat met het overeind houden van jullie sociale zekerheid? Dat is iets wat mij toch wat mij zeer hard interesseert. Wij horen ook vaak dat wij hier in onze contraien van Europa kunnen leren van wat de Scandinavische landen doen op het vlak van resilience, die weerbaarheid. Iets waar we allemaal hard gaan moeten op investeren in Hans Europa. En heel vaak hoor ik dat de Scandinavische landen daar echt een voorbeeld voor zijn in Europa. Zou u daar wat dieper kunnen op ingaan? Hoe zal u die resilience on a stronger democracy, hoe zal u die resilience bereiken? Ik denk dat wij ook daar heel wat kunnen leren van wat Denemarken betreft. En dan misschien een klein beetje de olifant in de kamer, maar ik wil het u toch vragen. Een van onze NAVO-partners die heeft quasi een claim gelegd op Groenland. Groenland dat toch onlosmakelijk verbonden is met Denemarken, laat ons heel eerlijk zijn. Denemarken is. Hoe gaan jullie daarmee om? Want dat is toch ook wel iets wat we niet gewoon zijn om binnen een bondgenootschap, binnen een alliantie, binnen een groep van friends en allies plots zo'n partner hebben die een claim legt op het grondgebied van een andere partner. Zou u daar, indien dat mogelijk is, wat dieper kunnen op ingaan wat jullie houding in die kwestie zal zijn? Ik wil u alvast danken voor uw antwoorden.
Dankjewel, meneer Waits. Y a-t-il d'autres membres qui souhaitent prendre la parole? Éventuellement, monsieur Diallo, je vous donne la parole.
Merci, monsieur le président. Madame l'ambassadrice, merci pour votre présence et pour votre présentation. Votre présidence affiche l'ambition de renforcer la compétitivité européenne, d'avancer vers une transition écologique cohérente et de redonner un souffle au processus d'élargissement. Nous aimerions toutefois obtenir des précisions sur plusieurs points essentiels. Concernant, 1. La révision du cadre financier pluriannuel, une proposition de révision est attendue de la Commission européenne ce mois-ci. Comment la présidence danoise entend-elle orienter la révision vers plus de compétitivité? Est-il question d'une simple réallocation des ressources ou d'un renforcement global du budget? 2. Sur l'allègement des charges de soutien à l'investissement, quelles mesures concrètes envisagez-vous pour alléger les charges administratives pesant sur les entreprises et stimuler l'investissement dans l'innovation, notamment via une union de l'épargne européenne? 3. Sur le marché unique et la stratégie industrielle verte, comment votre présidence compte-t-elle relancer le marché unique, en particulier dans les secteurs stratégiques liés à la transition écologique et numérique? 4. Sur les droits de douane américains, face au risque de nouvelles hausses de droits de douane américains sur les produits européens, quelle démarche la présidence danoise envisage-t-elle pour défendre les intérêts économiques de l'Union et éviter une escalade commerciale transatlantique? 5. Sur les objectifs climatiques, notamment l'indépendance énergétique. Alors que votre prédécesseur polonais avait mis l'accent ailleurs, vous réaffirmez ici la priorité climatique de votre présidence. Quelle initiative spécifique porterez-vous pour accélérer l'indépendance énergétique de l'Union, notamment vis-à-vis de la Russie? et quels sont les outils que vous comptez mettre en place pour en faire un objectif réellement transversal. 6. Sur l'élargissement, l'Ukraine, la Moldavie et les Balkans, quelle approche la présidence danoise adoptera-t-elle concernant cet élargissement? Je sais qu'il n'est pas question de fast-track, mais envisagez-vous des étapes intermédiaires permettant une intégration graduelle avant l'adhésion pleine et entière? Et enfin, sur le recul démocratique au sein de l'Union européenne, face aux inquiétudes concernant l'état de droit dans certains États membres, quelles mesures comptez-vous soutenir pour protéger les fondements démocratiques de l'Union? C'est quand même la base de notre Union. Envisagez-vous des mécanismes plus contraignants ou conditionnels liés au respect de l'état de droit, notamment dans l'accès aux fonds européens? Merci de votre attention.
Merci Monsieur Diallo. Je vais conclure cette séance de questions à Madame l'ambassadrice au nom de mon groupe. Cette audition intervient, Madame, à un moment charnière pour l'Union sur fond de recomposition géopolitique, de transition écologique et numérique et d'approfondissement de la construction européenne. Le Danemark incarne une vision européenne fondée sur la responsabilité, sur l'innovation et la coopération pragmatique. Sa présidence s'annonce d'ores et déjà comme une présidence de clarté dans un contexte où l'Europe a plus que jamais besoin de stabilité, de vision et d'efficacité. Les enjeux, vous l'avez rappelé, sont immenses. D'abord, sur le plan géopolitique, l'Union est confrontée à une guerre sur le sol européen, à des menaces hybrides qui sont malheureusement croissantes et à une remise en cause du principe du multilatéralisme. Il faut renforcer notre sécurité sans rompre avec notre ancrage transatlantique. Sur le plan économique, la compétitivité européenne est mise à l'épreuve par la course mondiale à l'innovation, les tensions commerciales, les subventions massives de nos partenaires et la pression pour réussir la transition verte sans sacrifier notre tissu industriel. Et puis sur le plan institutionnel, l'élargissement à l'Est vers l'Ukraine, la Moldavie, les Balkans occidentaux exige bien sûr de repenser en profondeur le fonctionnement de l'Union, ses règles de vote, ses finances, son efficacité démocratique. Enfin, sur le plan social, l'Europe fait face à une montée des inégalités, à des défis d'inclusion, à une polarisation politique croissante que seule une politique sociale ambitieuse pourra apaiser. Et puis sur le plan technologique, vous en avez touché un mot, l'Union doit faire émerger un modèle propre, éthique, un modèle performant dans le domaine de l'intelligence artificielle, de la cybersécurité, mais aussi de l'innovation de rupture. Et face à ces défis, la présidence danoise semble vouloir incarner une Europe utile, stratégique, équilibrée, qui réconcilie l'ambition avec la rigueur, la croissance avec la durabilité et la souveraineté avec l'ouverture. Et c'est dans cet esprit, Madame, que je souhaite vous poser une série de questions afin de mieux comprendre les lignes directrices de cette future présidence. Tout d'abord, en ce qui concerne la sécurité et la défense européenne, dans un contexte marqué par la guerre en Ukraine et la montée de ces menaces hybrides, la présidence danoise met l'accent sur le renforcement de la capacité de défense de l'Union en complémentarité avec l'OTAN. Comment le Danemark envisage-t-il de concilier d'une part l'autonomie stratégique européenne avec la coopération transatlantique au lendemain d'un sommet de l'OTAN qui a été, on peut le dire, historique, notamment dans le cadre des initiatives telles que Rearm Europe et le programme industriel européen de défense. Pour ce qui est de la compétitivité et la transition verte, la compétitivité européenne et la transition écologique sont au cœur des priorités danoises, avec la volonté d'accélérer la décarbonation industrielle tout en renforçant l'innovation. Quelles mesures concrètes la présidence danoise compte-t-elle promouvoir pour garantir que la transition verte soit un moteur de compétitivité et non un frein pour les entreprises européennes, en particulier les petites et moyennes entreprises? Je reviens ensuite brièvement sur l'acte sur la migration et l'asile. La mise en œuvre du pacte sur la migration et l'asile représente un défi majeur pour l'Union, tant sur le plan de la solidarité que sur le plan de la sécurité aux frontières. Quel levier la présidence danoise entend-elle activer pour assurer une application harmonieuse du pacte tout en répondant aux préoccupations des États membres sur la gestion des frontières extérieures et la lutte contre la migration irrégulière? En ce qui concerne l'élargissement et les réformes internes, l'élargissement de l'Union européenne, notamment vers l'Ukraine, la Moldavie, les Balkans occidentaux, suppose des réformes institutionnelles et budgétaires profondes. Comment la présidence danoise compte-t-elle favoriser un équilibre entre l'avancée des négociations d'adhésion et de l'autre, la nécessité de réformer les institutions européennes pour garantir l'efficacité d'une union qui serait élargie? Pour ce qui est de l'innovation numérique, le développement de l'intelligence artificielle, de la technologie quantique et de la cybersécurité est présenté comme un levier de compétitivité et de souveraineté. Et là, quelles sont les priorités danoises pour renforcer l'écosystème numérique européen et garantir que l'Europe reste à la pointe de l'innovation technologique tout en protégeant ses valeurs fondamentales et bien entendu les citoyens européens. Et puis enfin, en ce qui concerne le dialogue social et l'inclusion, la présidence danoise souhaite promouvoir ce dialogue social, cette inclusion et l'égalité de traitement dans un contexte de transformation économique et sociale rapide. Quelles initiatives la présidence danoise entend-elle mettre en avant pour renforcer la cohésion sociale et lutter contre les inégalités au sein de l'Union, notamment en matière d'accès au logement, mais aussi en matière d'égalité des chances? Voilà pour mes questions, Madame l'ambassadrice. Celle-ci clôture l'ensemble des questions de notre commission. And I give you the floor for the answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very good, very constructive questions and comments. We have taken a good note here of all the questions. I will try now to group your comments and your questions in some different with some different headlines. And of course, you know, we might come back with a little extra afterwards in writing, if that is okay to you. But let me start from the beginning. I think the first question also went around defense. And as I said in my presentation, it is really crucial that Europe is able to defend itself, and we have set the target 2030 at the latest. Also, as a credible contribution to the transatlantic security, we need to speed and concrete action all across Europe. Denmark welcomes the Rearm Europe plan and also the white paper on defense readiness. We need to procure and develop more together in Europe. And we need to place long-term orders and aggregate demand in order to ramp up European defense industry. I know something which is also very important here in Belgium. We need to remove all barriers. We need to mobilize private capital and create incentives for strengthening cooperation on defense equipment towards creating a true single market for defense products. For Denmark, a key task during the Danish presidency will be to finalize negotiations on a range of proposals, including the European Defence Industry Programme, which aims to promote joint procurement and production of defence equipment, and also to ensure stable supply chains, as well as integrate the Ukrainian defence industry into a European defence industrial base, something which we in Denmark also have good experiences with. In strengthening Europe's defence readiness, including across various working strands, Denmark emphasized the need for even closer cooperation between NATO and EU, and I think what I mentioned here is the tools we will use also to do that. This goes straight on to Ukraine. As I said, you know, the message last week was pretty clear when we saw Zelensky together with the Danish Prime Minister and von der Leyen. We will work for continued EU support for Ukrainians' defense. It is really important that Ukraine remains a top priority on the EU agenda. The enlargement process is, of course, also a key priority in that direction. At the same time, we will work to ensure that the EU enhances its military support for Ukraine for as long and as is needed. The Danish Prime Minister there is also very, very clear in the short and the long term. Also, when it comes to sanctions, the presidency will continue to work towards maintaining and adopting the toughest possible sanctions against Russia, as well as ensuring their effective implementation and enforcement across the EU, and also combating sanctions circumvention through joint efforts. Also, the civilian support. The presidency will work to ensure that the EU continues to play a leading role in providing Ukraine with sufficient, predictable and well-coordinated support. Focus will be on supporting growth, infrastructure and reforms that bring Ukraine closer to EU membership. Then let me turn to the MFF. Oh, no, I'm told here we start with migration. So we do that. And yes, Denmark, we are looking into a number of new ways of securing Europe. And as a supplement to the pact, Denmark has taken a lead role in exploring a new and innovative solutions to EU's common challenges with irregular migration. A new asylum system must ensure far better control with both who and also how many people enter into the EU, as well as readmission for people without a legal basis to stay. And with the Danish presidency here, we are pleased to see that many member states and the Commission are ready to take action to address these issues as well. The Danish government is in close dialogue with member states, and I know we are in contact with Belgium as well, and the Commission about concrete measures to solve our common challenges. But there are no quick fixes when it comes to stopping the influx of regular arrivals to Europe. During the Danish presidency, the work with new and innovative solutions will continue and will be carried out in connection with the recent proposal to a new return regulation, along with the recent proposal to amend the safe third country concept. Then we go to, if I can find it here in my papers, enlargement. Here. And yes, as I said, enlargement is closely connected to also the security for Europe going forward. The EU must be stronger and must be able to act more effectively. And therefore, the enlargement is an important element in realizing that vision. If implemented correctly, enlargement of the EU will contribute to a more stable and predictable security situation throughout Europe. And there, I think, again, we have to keep in mind what I said in the beginning also, that in many ways, EU is a success story in terms of enlargement. Russia's war of aggression has highlighted the need to support our eastern neighbors and the countries in the Balkans as well. And if the EU does not engage, a vacuum will arise, which other actors will happily fill. Therefore, concrete progress in the enlargement negotiations will be a priority during the Danish EU presidency, and we will work for substantial progress in 25. Ukraine is of particular importance here, and currently we have a single member state blocking progress. As presidency, we will work hard to get as far as possible in the negotiation. Ukraine's reform efforts are nothing. I'm lagging the next page, 39, here, short of impressive. We can also make real decisive progress with other candidate countries that are committed to their reform efforts, and that includes, for example, Moldova, Albania, and Montenegro. It is important that we do not lower the bar for membership. Instead, we will help candidate countries get over it. This is what we are doing with the EU's instrument for pre-accession, the IPA, and the many reform and growth plans launched over the past few years. Then there was a question about US tariffs. Holding the presidency of the Council does not in itself change our approach to the US. EU unity in our communication with and approach to the US administration remains essential, regardless of whether American measures are targeted at the EU as a whole or individual EU member states. We should continue efforts to engage the US in a constructive dialogue to find solutions and strengthen cooperation if possible. At the same time, we need to take the necessary steps to protect our economic interests if necessary. The EU has to reply firmly and proportionately without escalating when American measures leave us no other choice. Then we will go to the MFF, which I also, where we had a number of remarks and questions. The EU is facing major challenges in the short and long run, and we need to take responsibility and set an ambitious and responsible course. We need to be able to take care of our own security, continue our support for Ukraine, and strengthen our competitiveness. And we have to deliver also on green transition, protect our external borders, and prepare for EU enlargement. So, as was also mentioned here in the comments, we have to look at the budget in a new way. Status quo is not an option. The next multi-annual financial framework must deliver on the challenges of the future. And in order to do so, we need to change the structure of the EU budget. It will have to be simpler, more effective, and focused on our common strategic priorities. And we will have to modernize the budget structure and be ready to reduce cohesion funds and cap also to make room for new priorities. And limit administrative cost, like we have been trying to do also in Denmark for some years. Public funds are only part of the solution. We need to promote private investments also and improve conditions for European businesses. We need to, very importantly, remove red tape and burdens. And this is a shared task. I know when we look around the many industries we have here in our countries, they are waiting for that. We are looking forward to the Commission's proposal for the next EU budget. It is important for us to create momentum and avoid any delays in the process of reaching a final agreement. And it is a Danish priority to ensure as much progress as possible during the Danish presidency. And as I mentioned in the beginning, of course, we will not finalize it, but we will try to get a good start during this next 6 months here. Then there were questions about the digital issues we have here, opportunities and, of course, problems as well. And in line with the European Commission's work program for 25, a legislative proposal for a Digital Networks Act, the DNA, is expected in the fourth quarter of the year. And the initiative aims to revise the existing EU telecommunication framework to support the rollout of and investment in digital infrastructure. Our key objective will be to facilitate a smooth and constructive start to discussions in the Council. We intend to allow the Commission good time to present the proposal in detail and to walk through the accompanying impact assessment and allow member states to ask questions. Establishing a shared foundation for negotiations will be essential. and the government's ambition is for a proposal to support a market-driven development of telecom infrastructure and connectivity across the EU. The proposal should be technology neutral and promote choice, allowing enterprises and consumers to select solutions that best address national needs while reducing dependency on individual vendors and technologies. In light of the Draghi report and the broader focus on regulatory simplification, it is essential that the proposal contributes to streamlining the existing legal framework and reducing administrative burdens. Finally, the proposal should be firmly grounded in evidence, drawing on the latest data and incorporating input from member states, national regulators, and key stakeholders. Yeah, there were also some additional questions regarding the digital. We will look into that as well. But here we get to the resilience. There were questions about, how the presidency would address this. And geopolitically and technologically changed world intensifies the need to ensure citizens' access to free and reliable media. And this autumn, also here, the Commission is expected to present its European Democracy Shield initiative, aiming to protect European democracies against foreign interference and disinformation. The Danish government supports the European Democracy Shield initiative, which has the potential to further strengthen the coordination and effectiveness of EU's response to foreign interference. The Democracy Shield will help increase our resilience and protect our democratic system. Important that the initiative complements rather than duplicates existing instruments within the EU. And we will also work further on working with the initiative, including its aspect related to the media sector. Among other things, this involves ensuring access to reliable news and fair conditions for independent, pluralistic, and editorially responsible media in a digital age. Then we will go to the climate. There were questions about the climate. And it is important to ensure the green transition will continue in a way that maintains the level of ambition while also supporting at the same time the EU's competitiveness and security resilience, for example, through increased domestic energy production. And if I can just, say here with the Danish hat on, Denmark, we had, of course, very good experience, you can say, with the green transition coming back from the 70s, with the oil crisis back then. The entire Danish economy changed into a green economy, and that means that today we really have a first mover advantage when it comes to the green economy. But on the other hand, it really shows that it is possible to have competitiveness and the green economy at the same time. It's not competing, and I think that is also very important to keep in mind. The EU must continue to deliver on the transition to climate neutrality by 2050 at the latest. This requires, among other things, a cost-effective climate and energy architecture that promotes European clean energy production. At the same time, it is important to strengthen the security of supply of natural resources such as water and critical raw materials through a focus on the circular economy and water resilience. The Danish presidency will also work to promote European solutions to the major challenges related to climate, resources, pollution, nature, and biodiversity. And also within the field of energy, the Danish presidency will work on initiatives that strengthen Europe's security of supply, competitiveness, and green transition, and thereby also promote a well-functioning internal market for energy. And this includes an effort to ensure a complete phase-out of Russian energy at European level and a focus on strengthening the EU's ability to produce sufficient, clean and affordable energy while establishing the necessary energy infrastructure, enabling the energy to be transported wherever it's needed, also across borders. Then we come to rule of law. There were a number of questions in various questions as well. And I think that for the Danish presidency, it is very important to uphold the respect for the rule of law, including strengthening the effort to protect it. Will be a key for the Danish presidency. We will continue to the ongoing work related to the protection of the rule of law in the EU, and this includes the rule of law dialogue in the General Affairs Council, which the Danish presidency will prioritize. And with regard to the ongoing Article 7 procedure against Hungary, a hearing is foreseen during the presidency. The Article 7 procedure is an important tool to ensure that member states live up to the obligations and values of the European community and to defend the rule of law. And besides the work in the General Affairs Councils, we are planning a conference in Copenhagen about the rule of law as well. We had gender. There was a question about the Danish, not the as a presidency, but a Danish defense target. From Danish side, we do welcome the 5%. At the moment, Denmark, we allocate 3% of GDP to defense in 2025, plus 26, with a clear message that we are ready to do more. That was the question to the Danish defense target. We have, in terms of gender equality as well, which is something that is close to my heart. Gender-based violence remains a grave challenge for gender equality in the EU. We will present Council conclusions on prevention, early detection, and intervention against violence against women and domestic violence. We realize that to realize full gender equality, we must strengthen the inclusion of men and boys in gender equality efforts, both as strategic allies and by acknowledging also their gender-specific challenges. We will organize a high-level conference on men, boys, and gender equality, including with a focus on young men's and boys' exposure to unrealistic masculine ideals and misogyny online. Women's rights, including to their own bodies and lives, are under pressure, and we will facilitate exchanges of best practices of promoting consensual sexual relationship at an EPSCO Council meeting. That's very specific replies to that. We can continue for a little while longer, but then let us know when we've exhausted your patience also. Single markets. Let's see here. Greenland. Okay. The single market is a prerequisite for a competitive Europe now and in the future. As Enrico Letta and Mario Draghi both emphasized in their reports, a well-functioning single market providing access to more than 449 million consumers without unnecessary barriers and burdens is essential for companies to grow big enough to compete globally. However, companies are not reaching their full potential due to unnecessary barriers, fragmentation, over-implementation, lack of enforcement, and administrative burdens in the single market. It will be priority to improve the single market for citizens and businesses. The Commission's horizontal strategy for the single market is a good starting point for this, and the Presidency will have a special focus on digitalization, standardization, and automation of companies, reporting, and documentation. I think that we have been through a number of the headlines that was raised. I know that there were also specific questions to Greenland, and maybe let me just in that connection say that, of course, the Kingdom of Denmark consists of Denmark, Greenland, and the Faroe Islands. It's important unity, and of course, you know, it is very important for Denmark and for Greenland to continue a constructive and good dialogue with its close partners. I know that a lot of negotiations are going on, and with the full help from the EU as well. I think the partnership is still very strong within EU, within NATO, and the transatlantic partnership as well. More specifically, I think if there are questions we haven't really touched upon, we will of course go back and listen to your questions in detail, take note of if there were questions we haven't addressed, and we'll get back to you then with more specific replies to those. Mr. Honourable Chair, I don't know if you have things to add or...
No, thank you, Mrs. the Ambassador, for your complete and consistent answers. And I noted it well that you can provide us some written answers, but I'm not sure it will be really necessary because it was really consistent. As usual, I will give the floor to, and the last words to the member of this committee. En om te beginnen, ik zal het woord geven aan mevrouw Van Riet voor de groep N-VA. U hebt het woord.
Dank u wel, meneer de voorzitter. Thank you again, Mrs. Ambassador, for all your answers. I think they are very clear to us. There is, one more thing that I didn't mention in my questions, and it's about Ukraine and the sanctions and the shadow fleet. Because I was at the COSAC meeting last week in Copenhagen, and this was a word that was very often mentioned, this shadow fleet and how to tackle this. So that's also something of a very important point of attention for the next months, I think.
Bedankt, mevrouw Van Riet. Monsieur Lugène.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, pour remercier chaleureusement Madame l'ambassadrice et de souhaiter au Danemark une parfaite présidence. Et on rentre effectivement dans des moments qui seront des moments qui vont être soutenants les uns à l'égard des autres durant les prochains mois. Et la Belgique, en tout cas je le souhaite, ira effectivement dans votre sens par rapport aux grandes lignes que vous avez pu développer ce matin. Merci mille fois à vous.
Monsieur Diallo.
Merci Madame l'ambassadrice. Nous saluons votre engagement en faveur de l'Union européenne plus compétitive, plus verte et plus ouverte. Mais ces ambitions ne pourront aboutir que si elles s'accompagnent d'un sursaut démocratique. Relancer le marché unique, canaliser l'épargne vers l'investissement stratégique ou accompagner l'élargissement sont des défis majeurs. Ils exigent une Europe plus cohérente, plus efficace et plus respectueuse de ses propres principes. Au nom des engagés, nous comptons sur votre présidence pour impulser cette exigence de cohérence. Et encore une fois, on vous souhaite bonne chance, beaucoup de courage et je vous remercie.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Madam Ambassador, for your answers. Maybe you can give us in more detail the defense investment pledge question. I think that's something you can give us in written. I know it's more a bilateral question, but it will interest me how Denmark will reach the new NATO defense investment pledge. I want to wish you a lot of success with your presidency, and I'm sure Belgium will collaborate to a good succession of this presidency. You have a partner in Belgium. Good luck.
Merci, Monsieur Waits. Et pour ma part, je voudrais conclure également, Madame l'ambassadrice, en insistant sur la portée historique de cette présidence. L'Union européenne n'a pas simplement, je pense, besoin d'une présidence de routine. Elle aura besoin d'une présidence de vision, une présidence capable de renouer avec la promesse fondatrice de l'Europe, garantir la paix, la prospérité, les libertés, mais aussi la solidarité entre les peuples. Le Danemark a, je pense, démontré dans son histoire européenne qu'il pouvait être un facilitateur de consensus, un moteur d'innovation et un acteur crédible dans les grands dossiers internationaux. Son approche pragmatique, combinée à une forte conscience des enjeux géostratégiques, pourrait bien faire de cette présidence un point d'équilibre entre ambition et réalisme. Nous serons bien sûr nombreux à suivre cette présidence avec beaucoup d'attention et à la soutenir dans les chantiers qu'elle portera, mais aussi à interpeller, à dialoguer, à proposer pour faire en sorte que l'Europe avance de manière unie, forte, fidèle à ses valeurs. Thank you, Excellencies, Mrs. the Ambassador, for your availability. Thank you for your engagement in favor of a strong Europe, a just and sovereign Europe. Thank you so much. Et pour conclure, la prochaine session de notre comité Questions européennes aura lieu le mercredi, donc demain, 9 juillet, de 11h à 12h30. Ce sera bien sûr le débriefing du Conseil européen des 26 et 27 juin 2025. Chers collègues, merci à vous pour votre attention.